Frank Mosley, actor extraordinaire, Texas-based actor. We'll say you call Houston your home?
Dallas.
Dallas, excuse me.
Dallas,
what did I say Houston for? That's weird.
Just felt right.
Rephrasing. Do you call Dallas your home?
Yes, absolutely.
And we walked into the cafe like 10 minutes ago. It was empty, and now we have a live audience.
Well, yeah, I think it's because you attracted all the people in.
Stop.
They saw you.
And
they were just like, this guy.
Something
important must be happening. It was all you, Adam.
I don't know how many people do podcasts out of the media center, but it seems fitting.
Well, maybe they'll give us a laugh track for our little moments here. We'll need it.
Boy, oh boy, do I need a laugh track. Yeah, this idea that, now TV series, sometime in the 90s, let's get real, more verisimilitude with our TV shows.
I know.
Now it's like they replace the soundtrack with the sound effect. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like on all those Law and Order shows.
I know. It's too much.
It is. What was wrong with the soundtrack?
I know.
It actually, you laughed with it. You felt like you had friends with
Right.
you.
They're not telling you when to laugh. Because people don't like to be told what to do.
Well, that was
movies,
that was
if
the
it's
criticism.
subtly, if it's like inferred,
Yeah.
but then they still feel like they're figuring it out, then people love it. But
maybe they should have had more of a snicker track, not a laugh track.
They do need levels, don't they? Maybe
They do.
The
They have all
guffaw,
sorts.
guffaw laugh.
Well, they would have
level
all those
and,
things, as you probably know. There would be somebody at the
Right.
controls whose job it was just to do different.
We should make a film about that guy.
Well, I guess it would be retro.
He's like the saddest character in the film, but he's like does laugh tracks for films.
Were there still laugh tracks?
I think so.
Just some
I'm pretty
series
sure.
still have laugh
I just
track?
don't watch them.
No, but they have live audiences. But they would do a laugh track on top of shows that had live audiences too to increase the laugh to increase it, because even though it was a live audience, they still some people sometimes there wouldn't be much laughing at certain points, but so they had to fill it in with.
They got to oil the humor
with
a little
cosmetic
bit. They just
laughter.
got to massage.
It's interesting because now they do. I mean, the live audiences might be the. I don't know. Do they still have? Seems almost a little bit.
I don't know. To be a little antiquated a little bit.
Yeah, an antiquated thing or anachronistic almost. It would be interesting to have about the last laugh track guy.
That would be. I mean, that'd be your whole script right there. That'll be a film we make next, and I'll have you be the lead. It'll be the laugh track.
What about
guy.
you?
I don't know. I'll just direct you. And then,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it. When did you start acting?
When I was, 4 years old.
Really?
My dad. Yeah. I mean, I'd say professionally for the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I started acting when I was about 4.
So you're 14?
Yeah. How'd you know? Look at this face. It's aged quite a bit over the past couple years.
It has.
Before then, I looked at but it was my dad had a Sony Handycam Hi8 tape, ready and available. It was blank. It was on loan. This camera that he got on from my Uncle Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was bored one day when my mom was at the store, and so he goes, "I'm going to make a movie with Frank since it's just the two of us at the house." So he made The Wizard of Oz, and I played all the roles.
Is that right?
And we shot
Is
it.
that
Yeah, it was my
available?
first. Well, it'll leak out, I'm sure, at some point.
Well, let's get a clip from that.
Because
Like
Meg's been wanting to see it, so maybe I'll just put it
Who's
up.
Meg?
Meg.
Who's Meg?
My lovely partner in crime, my
Okay.
girlfriend.
All right.
Yeah.
And so you got the bug just from that experience?
I would say so.
Watching it?
My parents raised me on movies. My dad especially. He would show me all kinds of films growing up. He was showing me Charlie Chaplin films when I was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, but those
But
kids didn't have any filters up yet about
they did. You're right. So
that
we
it
were
was
all
black and white
sponges,
or that it was
right.
old or
And so to me, he was just so open. And same with music. My dad, my mom too, but my dad would really
in particular
go the extra mile and just trying to make sure I saw things that other people weren't really seeing.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful to them for that.
Sure.
So
I got to do that with Jacob actually, show him some
Yeah.
of those classics because I do have some because I do a lot of work with a distributor of those films, and especially the Buster Keaton stuff.
Yeah, my dad would show me Keaton and Harold Lloyd and Laurel and Hardy and all. I mean, it just and what's funny is some of those movies really ingrain themselves into my subconscious. So even when I do stuff now, sometimes I'm like, why does this seem so familiar to me? I'm doing some scene in a film, and I'm like, oh, it's the music box from Laurel and Hardy or something.
Oh,
it's
really?
it just little things come back from things you love and you ingrain.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you were a particular fan of those early comedies, the silent films.
And horror films, really. I mean, to be honest, up to the time I was about 15 or 16, I wanted to be a horror film director. That was I was obsessed with horror genre films.
Like Wes Craven films?
Yeah, that. But again, I was raised on the way my family was. My dad was, he had no problem with me seeing like nudity in films or like sexual kind of element. It was the violence in films that he couldn't. Oh. That he didn't care. He was just like, the violence is just, it's oversaturated as a culture, and because you don't need to see all that stuff.
Or kind of like
can be linked intrinsically in a really
unhealthy way.
Yeah, unhealthy way, especially in America. But so he would show me all kinds of horror films like the Bela Lugosi and the Universal pictures, and so those were a lot more easier for a little kid to digest.
Vintage stuff, though.
Yeah, but then as I got older, I got into Carpenter and all those. But
because you were coming up in the late '80s, maybe.
Yeah, I was an '80s kid, and so
early '90s. When you were becoming a young adult.
Yeah, but I would watch. I remember like watching Halloween on TV, the original one, and it affecting me greatly.
Even though it was edited.
It was, but even that movie's not that gory. Really, the first one, there really isn't much blood. It's just all about the slow burn, the build up, and to me, that's. What's funny, Adam, is I can even see that, even though all I do are really dramas now. I don't really do horror films as a director, but I can see the slow burn, like the things I took from horror films, where it's like all about the tension and the build. Like, that's like in every film, I think.
Yeah. Did you ever get into Hitchcock?
Oh, I loved Hitchcock. Yeah, absolutely.
Seems to be the go-to guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For cross generations.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my dad and I used to watch a lot of those. But I made movies my whole childhood into high school, and was always that kid making movies, and I was in theater in high school, but then I would get the kids from theater class who, over the weekend they'd be free, and so I'd steal all the theater kids and have them be in my films.
Okay, so then you were making home movies, right?
Yeah,
getting friends involved.
I was just making movies on my own with that same camera that we started off with when I was like 4.
Still working with the Sony.
Still working with the High 8, and
and
I'd work on that all the time. My friends would make films, and get them to do stunts for me, jumping off roofs, and my mom would be gracious enough to put on horror makeup and be a zombie or whatever. It was great.
That is great.
Yeah.
And then, did you want to be a filmmaker or an actor?
They were always entwined. I don't think there's ever been a separation for me for the two, because as soon as I made that film with my dad, I was automatically then making movies myself. Right. And so it's always just, and at first it was always because I wanted to make movies, but there were no actors to be in my movie. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm one of the actors. And then,
Sure, makes sense. Also, if you think about it, because your way in wasn't through films, your interest, the passion that you developed wasn't through going to film school, or rather just watching movies on the big screen.
Right.
In other words, a lot of people, like even myself, our introduction to film and becoming interested in film was watching watching the movie at the local cinemas.
Right.
Therefore, if we wanted to be involved in movies, we thought, it would be great to be an actor. But the thing is unless you're already shooting at home, if you're making them at home, then you can see yourself being on either side of the camera, because it's not a mystery as much of what's happening behind the camera.
I was already involved in the process of like wanting to see like what makes it tick, and how it works, and so so I would go to the movies, and I was obsessed. Like we go to the movies all the time. My family, we go like every Friday. Yeah. We'd go to the movie. We'd pick a movie and go see it, and right after school when I was a little kid, and so good memories there. Of being fostered into that.
And then, I guess, as you were coming up down in Austin, maybe the film scene was just started to really take off with Richard Linklater.
It was the Rodriguez and everybody, and that was really beginning to blow, and that was inspiring to people in Dallas. But there I was in Dallas, and so I went to UTA for an English degree. So it's UT Arlington campus.
Oh, okay.
And
that was Austin.
And so I got an English degree, but then I took film classes, and that's how I met a lot of the friends that
ended up.
We've kept in touch at all the years, but like even if we don't see each other, we still help each other out. We watch each other's cuts and read script drafts, and they're really good people. We all still work together.
Clay Lyford.
Clay Lyford. And there were a lot of people that were kind of indirect, like Clay and David Lowery and a few people, but
both have been on the podcast.
Yeah, and one of these days we'll get them on here. But I'm actually happy to be on here, to be honest, because we've been talking about this for so long.
Absolutely true. I was like, when I was in Austin last month, I was interviewing some of the locals, which shall be posting over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I had a show with Bill Wise and of course
great.
Chris Dubeck back on the show, and I had
Heather. The two of those guys together is just
right. And then I sat with Johnny Mars and Heather Kafka.
Nice.
And so it's kind of, for me, it's kind of nice to talk to people that are not here in New York, but in places like Los Angeles and in this case, I guess, Dallas and points elsewhere. Yeah, so it's nice to get their takes, your take on coming from your perspective, which is definitely different than a lot of other people,
Yeah, I agree.
Being an actor here, because you did consider coming here at certain points, right?
I did. About 3 years ago, because I the funny thing is I actually don't do a lot of work in Texas, and that's not because I'm trying to avoid it or anything. It's just the way the projects have worked out. Some of the ones I've gotten involved with, and with the directors that I want to work with, they tend to be outside of Texas. And so I'd say about 90% of those projects outside of Texas are from New York. Mm-hmm. And so I just started coming more and more frequently, and I love the city. I just really adore it. And but yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I realize you can live anywhere and have a home base.
Passionate.
Yeah, and if you can travel, then you know.
Absolutely true. I mean, just talk to Nathan Silver, for God's sake. I don't think he's even got a home base anymore.
The world is his home. Right?
He's just. I think he just keeps making films so that he can live on among the festivals.
And I admire him because he's so productive. He's so prolific, but he creates such great work too. Like every single film of his I've seen, they all have that thread that's noticeably his voice, but at the same time they all have a different element to them that really make each one stand out as distinctive.
Right. You just described something that you like. You want to work for a filmmaker who sort of has a kind of auteur approach. Maybe not completely in the classic definition, but he is Nathan definitely comes from like an auteur framework in the sense of he's trying to make films that are his.
It's always been
in ensembles and
and that word auteur has always been funny to me, like in how people the colloquial definition that people have and how they like define it. Because some people can take that in more of a negative connotation, where it's like they are kind of running as a dictatorship over. And
clearly a lot of directors are dictator types that are not considered auteurs.
You're right. They can be seen that way, and I feel like sometimes he's like the old joke that either the director is like the guy with the bullhorn and the gun, like Sam Fuller, or he's the quietest guy in the room. You don't even know he's there because he has all these other people working with and around him, to where there's no shouting, and there's kind of this unspoken communication going on. And so I love filmmakers that aren't afraid to take risks and to have their own voice, but also, there's again that line between the film as the art and film as the business and show business, and that idea of it's so much tougher when you're trying to get a product out there as a commercial product. It's very difficult. Whereas, yes, I'd say, Adam, the films that I want to make are noticeably more abstract, and the experimental films are the ones that I'm attracted to watching more of.
Oh, yeah?
And so those are the kind of films that I tend to make and gravitate toward.
So contemporary people...
I'd say...
your fellow...
Like Nathan's works are like fantastic, but
Do you consider that experimental?
I think his style. I think using improvisation is that's the experimental element of it.
I guess so.
Because it's not. There's always something that could be left to chance. I guess in a way, in a big way. That's.
I just look at kind of them as fairly. I mean, ultimately conventional in the sense that there's a
it's a narrative.
There's a narrative. There's
and
dialogue.
You're right.
There's a continuity to the storytelling.
In that way, yeah. I mean, I tend to be attracted toward things that are non-narrative, or like video installation works. Like I'm fascinated by people who do video installations and actors who are in them, and like how that process works. And I've never been an actor in one. I would love to be, but But I love that collaborative process with somebody who has a vision and just getting to be like one little part of it. If you dig their work, if you see what they're trying to do, you know.
Yeah, Shane Carruth, Upstream Color. You had a supporting role in that.
Yeah. Brief.
But he's definitely experimental.
I totally agree. And that's for me. That was a film. I was just lucky to be a part of it. But and the funny thing is too, like everybody that was involved with that film, the whole film was kind of a secret. And so I had heard that there was this new movie that I should audition for, but they couldn't really tell me what it was. And so there was like this big build up. And then the pages for the film that I got script wise were only my scenes, which are almost like a short film in and of itself, but it's still very mysterious. There's this guy who's watching this couple and kind of, off on a farm, and I was like, how does this even... I was so intrigued, and so I'm thankful that I sent an audition tape, immediately got cast by Shane, and got to work with Carolyn King, who's lovely, and just the whole thing was... like one of those films where it was magical making it, even as briefly as it was that I was there, but then seeing it on the big screen with an audience and how it was woven together, I was just really impressed. I'm a fan of that film, like just even, unbiasedly, watching it. Like if I wasn't in the film, everything else about it is so beautiful.
Yeah, that was I think my first film 2 years ago when I went to South by. That was the first thing I saw out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I did run into you there, not at the film, but at the festival.
That's right.
But we didn't really get to. And this year, of course, we had plans. Everybody should know to sit down and see entertainment and have a bit of a reunion together.
I had a little Kleenex and whiskey to console myself after not seeing you there.
Well, there's always another year.
I know.
That's one good thing.
All of our South by adventures.
Yeah. Well, there's the best is yet to come.
Yeah, it's very true.
Don't you agree?
Very true.
Even though sometimes it doesn't always feel that way, but the truth is the best years are ahead of us.
Right. Keep looking forward.
I have a lot invested in that thought. Yeah. So what are some of the other directors that you really like? Who's a director you would just love to work with, and if they were listening,
Well, I mean, on the independent level, like Tim Sutton did Memphis. I think he's doing in Pavilion.
Pavilion,
he's just his Memphis really kind of blew me away because it was again it kind of tackling the experimental realm of like when you first see it, you're like, is this a documentary? Is this a narrative? Like at first glance, you're trying to figure out what it, and you realize it's kind of this hybrid of everything.
Yeah, and
it's just this. It's almost like a tone poem, the whole thing. And I love those types of films. But the fact that film got made and it was really pushed out through the Venice, the lab, and it was endorsed and really helped along and nurtured, I think that's a good sign for where movies are headed. Right. So I'm a big fan of Tim's work. Yeah,
he was on the show, of course. I should have something that like an automatic feature that where as soon as somebody mentions on the show, it says, please go to episode 212 of Filmwax Radio.
Hey, that's good. You link them all together that way.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you can find out. I mean, in a way, there is an interactive nature to this
library.
Ideally, of course.
I think that's great. That's wonderful.
And if I had the manpower, I could also, during this episode, we discussed the following filmmakers and films. I would love to be able to get into that, but I'm usually just trying to get the show up and out, and it's so incredibly hard for me to put that much information, and I try to plug everybody's things as best as I can for their
you do great, Adam. You're seriously, you're a champion. So that's this is. I mean it.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll take a station break for you. For
50? You got that 50 for me
in the mail, my friend.
Thank you.
So Tim Sutton, good choice. I'm also a fan. I think he's doing beautiful work.
Yeah, I totally think Tim Sutton's great. I mean, there's so many filmmakers right now that are actually.
It's true.
Doing a lot of work.
Yeah. The bar is finally. I think the bar was raised, and there are a lot of people whose game is really. They're working at a great.
I think
creative game.
It's like and again, speaking from bias because there's the lead actor in this film, Some Beasts, but this film, this to me, and not just because he's my friend, but so Cameron Bruce Nelson, who's a Dallas guy.
Okay.
He's really got it going on, like this guy, like as a filmmaker, because he comes from an anthropology background, and he worked on this farm for I think 6 years. He lived and worked on this farm. It was out in Virginia, very isolated, with a very small community of people. And I'm always fascinated by filmmakers who emerge that aren't just coming strictly from film. Like me, I feel like I was born in movies, like with movies. Just loving cinema. And I'm always fascinated with people like Shane, who's an engineer, and he really didn't watch a lot of movies. And then he made Primer, and now like he's transforming, the way we see different languages of cinema,
Yeah, and he's created this niche for himself.
Yeah.
Shane is this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And he has his voice, it's Shane Carruth. And that's, I feel that way about Cameron. I really think that film is.
And he's also established this mystique for himself,
too,
which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't fuck it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to bringing Shane on eventually.
No.
By the way, I've been talking about this film I saw at South by this year. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Cretia, which is by this Texan guy. I think he might be Houston. That's maybe what it was.
I'll look that up. I know
his name is Trey Edward Schultz.
Okay.
He's going to be in Nashville.
Some Beast
will be in Nashville. I'm going to Nashville, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I'm very excited for you to see that.
I will see that. Yeah. It's on my radar now. And I'm catching up. I've been watching music docs because, first of all, I was thinking that maybe I'll do a live podcast or something along those lines. They said, well, how about being a juror?
Yeah.
So I'm going to Nashville. And so you choose, sometimes I guess this is the way it works because I haven't done it very much, but you get to choose a category, or they assign you a category because they have different categories every festival. So I ended up with music documentaries, which, of course, if you're going to Nashville, Music City,
rich with that. Yeah,
it's a great topic.
Yeah,
so I've watched about a half dozen documentaries already about the music industry.
Any ones that really stood out?
One was called Country, and I forget the subtitle, and it's all about the history of country music, going back to the beginning. Told through the history of the photography.
Very interesting.
That has occurred in the country music industry. There's been these different photographers. You almost didn't need that component to it, but it's kind of interesting. And there's so many. They kind of embed within the story, credit to all these photographers because we don't have footage of a lot of those guys. I mean, and it's also probably way too expensive for the filmmakers to get all the footage from all these different legends. But going all the way back to the beginning to, I forget. I guess it was they consider maybe Rogers, the Carter family, and he wrote like the Rock Island Line, I think, and a bunch of. I think he did. He's, you have to know country music, like vintage country music,
right?
I think it was Rogers, not Roy, of course.
Yeah,
but that was later.
Right.
This is before. This was like Depression era. This is the beginning, kind of Depression era was kind of the beginning of old time kind of country music, and it started with him. And with the Carter family, they consider that like kind of generation one, and it goes through right to the contemporary singers, but the ones who keep the tradition more, like they talk about others and how pop music has entered into it, but they kind of keep going back to the people that have kept the tradition of country music.
It's interesting. They're showing that the evolution
through
with the photos, which is
photos.
What's really I think it's a cool spin.
There's
on
been
it,
a bunch of different photographers that are particularly known. For like the guy that shot at, he's still alive. The guy who shot at the Grand Ole Opry, people like that. The guy who just happened to shoot Johnny Cash, a lot of Johnny Cash, and was there for some of the very seminal photos of Johnny Cash because he was really like people loved the photographs that the camera seemed to love him is basically what I'm saying. And he had that famous one with he flips the bird, which is classic. Yeah, it was really good. It's going to drive me nuts though because
it'll come to you.
I want to say that singer
in the middle of the next conversation you just like blurt it out like
Tourette's. Like I got Tourette's.
That's so cool. You're going to be there though. I wish I was going. I love Nashville. I've only been through briefly just. Actually, traveling through to shoot some beasts, we just traveled through, but I would love to be there.
It's a great
I'd love
spot.
to spend time there.
I've spent many years going there, and less frequently in the last few years. There was a big period of time because I used to have in-laws there, and I still do. My ex-wife has a brother there with his family, and that's my kid's cousins. So
right.
I went there 2 summers ago to pick up my kid, and it was my kind of welcome back to, in a way, or reconnection with Nashville. And then this came up, and so I jumped at it because I do enjoy going back, and I have a lot of memories, and I still have a few friends there. So
that's wonderful.
Hopefully going to connect with one of them.
I would love to be there.
Yes. It's a perfect one because you're in like several of the films, right? Aren't you?
I'm in some Ladies of the House, the horror film that's playing there, and then some Beasts.
Ladies of the House is, by the way, directed by John
Wildman.
Yeah. John Stewart.
Yeah,
Wildman.
That's true. To make the distinction there.
He's creative. Yeah. Not to be confused with the John Wildman who works at the Film Society Lincoln Center, which is, by the way, the same person. But they don't want to.
The whole Clark Kent Superman thing. Yeah. John is a wonderful, wonderful guy. It was fun working on Ladies of the House. It was just like. In both, it was just a very, in a weird way, you were talking about horror films a minute ago, like what, I finally got to be in 2 horror movies as an actor over the past couple years, and I'd always wanted to, so kind of a dream come true.
What was the Cattle Baron? That short. That was my kind of introduction.
Oh yeah, that was what was
it called?
Cork's Cattle Baron.
Yeah. It was you and Longstreet.
Yeah, that was Longstreet and I's first collaboration. I think we've done now like 4 or 5 movies. I think together.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, we I love that guy.
Oh, because you were you're also in Brandon Colvin's movie
Sabbatical,
yeah, which we've had on. Almost. Now it's nice because we're almost another little byproduct is when you have on different people, like different actors. Is you end up getting the whole cast on eventually.
Oh yeah, piece by piece.
Yeah, I had Thomas J. Ryan on.
Yeah,
I had of course Robert. I think he'll have to come back on because of the response to that episode was pretty strong.
Oh, nice, that's great.
And so so you were in that too. And that's still in the festival. That was shot in Wisconsin.
It was shot in Madison, and I just had one scene in there, but it was one of the smoothest to just come in and have a scene and play with Robert and meet that crew. I mean, honestly, that was one of the smoothest sets I've ever been on. Like that team, it was like so well oiled.
Filmmaker?
It's his second feature.
Oh,
he made this one called Frames, which was more kind of Haneke. Like a thriller edge, and then Sabbatical, and I remember I was so impressed by Sabbatical, the script, Adam, because when I got the script, it wasn't written by scene headings, it was written by shots, and it would meticulously describe the frame, page by page. So basically, you were seeing the movie in detail, and then you see the film. I was like, that's what I read. Like
not only, in other words, it's telling you how to picture each of the scenes, because usually you as you're reading it, of course you're creating the scenes in your head anyway, but now it's actually telling you who you're looking at and from which angles.
And I was so impressed by that because it showed the confidence that Brandon had as a filmmaker to say and to show that, hey, we're going to shoot it this way, which is unconventional coverage, which was really attractive.
I didn't know he did that because and I had him on, Brandon on as well, with his editor, producer.
Tony's great.
So
and an amazing Vine superstar,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Apparently he's a Vine superstar. He started doing some things on there and did some kind of, I think, Dance with Genuine in some show.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. He's all over he's all over the place. Okay, like he's incredible.
Yeah.
Tony's really busy.
Wow. I want to do a couple of things. One is I want to do a promotional video for the podcast.
That's a good idea.
Like do something to and then so I need to start to kind of figure that out.
That's a good idea.
And I also need all sorts of other sort of things for marketing things for the show. But I was thinking of doing some sort of promotional video for the because I've been kind of doing this for years now.
Yeah.
And I did do something with Jared Alderman. I don't know if you know Jared.
Jared's great. He has a cameo in my last short that I made.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't name somebody that you like. Oh, I have a greater story about him. He was on several years back with Convento, but he. This is not in any way criticizing because we just sort of winged it. But I went out there to New Jersey and we shot a very bizarre thing. Very bizarre, and it's never been. I don't know. He's got it
for Filmwax or just a movie.
Yeah, no, it was going to be
project.
When I was transitioning over. No. Yeah. When I transitioned from my former partner in what I was doing with B-Box folks, B-Box Radio, the internet radio people, which I had very good memories of. Yeah. But it made more sense to be on a film podcast to transition to podcast for me, And so when I started with my more recent partnership with Rooftop Films, I thought, let me also do a promotional video. So I asked Jared, and he said, yeah, of course. And so he invited me. And so we did this thing, but it just, I guess it became this just, too overwhelming for him to kind of edit, and I couldn't really push him about it. And then I was like, no, who cares? Life's too busy. So at some point or other, we'll have to look at that. But I want to do something a little bit more, fun and.
I think that's a great idea. And Jared's great because Convento I thought was a beautiful film, but then just even as the guy seems to freelance, like he DPs and does all this other stuff.
Does a lot of work.
So he has his hands in a lot of pots. So I'm a big fan of that guy.
Yeah. And he's kind of experimental too. Convento certainly was.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of interesting because these guys intentionally make films that are not going to be easy to market, not going to be easy to to show, and it's almost like this is good. You were definitely doing it for the love and the passion of doing it. You're not doing because it may have been at one point in life that these films could get out there.
Yeah.
Now it's really really next to impossible to get a film like that's experimental in nature.
It really is, and I think you just got to know what you're making going in. Like what you're doing. You know that's that kind of film, so you can expect that kind of response to it. Mm-hmm. You have expectations kind of set. I think are in order to know. And what's funny too is it's like there's some movies I want to make that aren't as abstract or experimental, but they would need some money. And so I feel like all these other films are trying to just maybe to make a small little body of work enough to show what I can do at this small level, micro budget level, taking a few risks here and there and just trying to tell a story in as different ways I can, to put a different spin on something and see if people respond to it. And if they do, then maybe that'll get me the assistance I need monetarily to make some of these bigger projects.
Who's the director? Who's the guy? Because I'm not even trying anymore because you're young and your memory works. So, and the director of the Oregonian and all those guys?
Calvin
right,
Reeder.
Calvin Reeder. Then there's Calvin Reeder, who is another guy who's also making experimental films.
Oregonians,
and he's in L.A. I guess, right?
I don't know where
he's in L.A.
I lose track of that guy.
He's in L.A. I ran into him last year during the North Side. I don't even remember exactly.
The North Side Fest.
I was going to say that. No, it was this past fall. Last fall, I ran into him during Independent Film Week here at Lincoln Center. I ran into Calvin.
That's cool.
He was here because I guess he's got something new he's working on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just for a few minutes.
I love the Oregonian. I think that was a wild trip.
Longstreet's in that too, right?
He is. Yeah, he's in the opening.
Memorable.
Yeah.
Moment.
One of the first times I saw him.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the guy stays busy.
He does.
Robert's like another uncle or something to me. I love that guy. He's just like. He's a good man.
Indeed, yeah.
He's a lot of passion,
Right.
Most people only have like a tenth of what that guy has passion-wise because he brings it. So, yeah.
So do we cover enough of the filmmakers
that I'm into?
Well, yeah, that you're, When you mentioned a couple, I guess we've been talking about indie filmmakers, but maybe there's some like if you wanted to
do something bigger with some.
I mean, there's obviously another local guy, Terrence Malick.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
He's sort of. I guess he's got a new film, Knights of Cup.
Yeah,
and then he has another one right after that.
New films just coming out left and right.
Well, for 30 years he didn't do anything, so it's kind of good.
It's true. Yeah, he's making up for lost time. But I would say, I think there's a lot of filmmakers I'd probably love to. I mean, some Texas folks wise like Linklater, and there's a lot of people that I would love to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But really, at the end of the day, it's just about I think what the movie's about, like what the script's about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always just looking for, and sometimes for me on a even more maybe a selfish level as an actor, it's not even so much about the story, but it's like, can I honestly bring something to a character?
Right.
Because not worrying about a whole canvas, but just be like to be a part of the canvas and just be like.
Have you said no to things for that reason?
I have,
uh-huh.
And there's some things that I've just. And there's been some times where I've read some roles and I'm like, I'm not right. Like I'm level with the director and be like, I'm not right for this, but maybe here's somebody who is, and I can throw some names out of some friends who might be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like challenges. I'm always looking for one project as an actor to be something different than the last thing that I've done.
Very good.
That's kind of like my go-to.
Right. Yeah. Answer.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked a very, commonplace question then, because you had a ready answer for it. No, but it's interesting because to know better is a big deal, because you get to the set and it's not really quite working, and you know why.
Yeah,
you were probably miscast. Or
if you do any I mean, there's a part of me that's like, as a working actor, if you want to be a working actor and you want to like try to survive off of that, then it's like you're going to have to take some work that maybe you don't want to do, but it pays the bill, so to speak, right? But I feel like even with those jobs, you need to do the best of your ability. Like you need to bring it.
Right.
And
so what is bringing it?
There's some story
involved.
Yeah, but there's some story.
How do you describe bringing it?
I remember there's a story Cassavetes' dad told him one time when he admitted to his dad that he was going to be. He told me he was going to be an actor. He goes, I've decided I'm going to be an actor. And he was kind of nervous to tell him this because he's like, great, my dad's going to probably not be too happy about this. What is he going to say? And he took like a long pause, and like Cassavetes was like expecting the worst. And then he goes, that's a big responsibility because you have to be truthful. And then really, like reading that really stuck with me. That once you say yes and you make that commitment to that role, no matter if it's a commercial or whatever it is, you have to own it and commit to it and go.
Well, or do you think that's kind of what our finest, more successful actors, and that the description of or definition of successful is obviously, great. Right. There's a lot of ways of interpreting it, right. but in the general sense, do you think that that's a credo that a lot of people go by, or do you think?
I would hope so. I really, I don't know if a lot of people. I would think so, but I think.
Do you see certain actors that you can kind of sense that's the way they operate? I mean, like Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh,
he's a go-to guy that everybody thinks is.
And this isn't just this, and I mean this, but when he passed, I cried when Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away. I didn't know it was coming. I just started kind of crying when I saw the headline. Because there's a guy that for me is a perfect example of that, Adam. Is that because when he started off, he was in all these small roles that he worked on as this character actor, for years. And people would kind of remember him, be like, oh, he was that guy. But no matter what he was in, he was just completely committed and in the zone and doing the job. And it was just so amazing to see his career flourish and blossom. Yeah. And then suddenly he was this leading man. And in a wonderfully uncharacteristic way, based on how big Hollywood movies cast, and they would have Philip Seymour Hoffman as like a bad guy in Mission Impossible. I'm like, wow, 10 years ago they wouldn't have done this, and now they're doing it.
Yeah.
So he's a big inspiration. That guy.
Yeah. What about I know who else is there's so many great actors now that are working. They're from all over the world too. I mean, not just even just Americans.
And that was the thing that just happened with me. I love a lot of international cinema, and I was fortunate enough to get into the Berlinale Talent Campus just this past February, and so I went to Germany for the first time. And what I loved about it was in the acting studio, I got to meet all these other actors that were from all over the world, but we're all in the same boat. And what
is the boat? What are you talking about?
The boat is we're all struggling to keep the boat from sinking. We're all there trying to.
Are you all in a kind of a middling part of your career in the sense?
Yeah,
you're still like you have to work a lot in order to make ends meet, and you're always looking for. You know what I mean? Obviously, you can't do one movie a year and then just sort of kick back because.
I think what it is that meeting those other actors to me just made it so universal. It was like the tangible example for me to see how everybody is is struggling to get their art out on the independent level and to get it out and to be seen. Yeah. And there's some that get to be more fortunate than others and there's so many factors involved. So I feel like as long as you have a lot of hard work and you really just push hard, eventually something could happen to you, but you just got to never stop. You can't cease that. And being in Berlin, and I was, in a acting class of 15 people. I was the only American, and the rest were from all over the world. And it was inspiring because we would all trade stories about how different people, our different cultures, would treat micro-budget filmmaking, in different countries. And we were very fortunate here in the States actually to have as much film happening because there's more work because everybody's making micro-budget movies. You know?
Sure.
My friend in the Philippines, and he was like, well, he goes, there's maybe a couple. And he goes, but it's really, there's the big movies, and if you don't get onto those, you don't get into anything.
Right. Sure.
Man. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Philippines. I never thought of it as a hotbed of anything much in terms of arts, but
just thinking of the struggle of somebody who wants to be an actor who's in the Philippines and
there are definitely films coming out. There are definitely films coming out of the Philippines on a regular basis. Microcosmic fraction.
Right. Here you throw a stick and it's just somebody shooting down. There's that guy right outside this window. He's shooting a movie right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They look like they're construction workers, but don't be fooled. They are not. They are independent filmmakers. Well, let's just talk about what's coming out now, what people can expect to see in the coming weeks and months, so we can plug some of the new work here. So we know you're in this movie. We mentioned a couple of things. One, we mentioned John Wildman's movie, which is called Ladies in the House. So that's coming out.
That's playing
on VOD.
Yeah, that's actually
later this
about
month
to come out because it's kind of finishing up its festival run.
The Gravitas Pictures is distributing it digitally.
So. And then Some Beasts.
Beasts.
It's having a dual premiere.
Brewster, what was his name?
Cameron Bruce Nelson. And he's so that film is having a dual premiere at Dallas and Nashville.
Festivals. We're still a bit of a ways from a theatrical, but we can
it's just kind of starting its run.
And that's again, it's called Some Beasts.
Yeah. So that's kind of
Some Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Right. That's the parenthetical we don't ever talk about.
No. And then what else you got?
I have. There's actually some. I was in a film called Americana that was shot last fall in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it was the first feature from Zachary Shedd, but his group is the Flies Collective. which Daniel Carbone is a part of.
Sure.
And so he was a producer on that film. He did Hide Your Smiling Faces, and so I got to work on that film. So that should hopefully be coming out. I'm hoping later this year, but it's kind of like a modern day noir piece, and that was a blast to work on. And to be in that city was great. So hopefully that'll be coming out, and I'm actually back in New York the end of this month to shoot Carbone's segment of the Collective Unconscious project.
Oh yeah, right. With those guys, so, had them on the BK Live show.
Yeah, which is a really again, we talking about experimental and like things you're attracted to.
Lily,
it was like
you just worked with Lily's also. Yeah. Lily Baldwin.
Yeah,
so also, you just did something with her, or you're doing something with her.
Yeah, I'm actually
another filmmaker from that collective.
Yeah, it's interesting, like balancing the acting and the directing. But I'm basically coming off of Her Wilderness, kind of finishing that run, my last feature I directed, and it just had its New York premiere here. It was at the New School, and it was really great.
How'd that go?
Great.
I'm sorry I missed it.
No, it was great. I'm just glad I got to see you beforehand. That was nice.
Yeah,
but no, it was great. We had a great turnout, but so it's like immediately I wanted to have something else that I could immediately jump to, like another pot going, and so I'd written this short script called Parthenon, and so Lily Baldwin's graciously agreed to star in the film, and this could be a short, 10 to 15 minute piece, but we're going to shoot that in June.
Oh, great!
So I've been location scouting here in the city all week and just trying to find the right space.
Terrific! Well, it's good to have you here.
Maybe squeeze you in there. Who knows?
Well, I'm available anytime you want. Just let me know. Happy to do whatever. And then anything else that you got?
Just I mean, that's kind of really just kind of balancing. Yeah, that's it. I don't know. I feel like just trying to start those new projects and then getting out the last one. Her Wilderness has a couple more screenings. I guess I could plug those real quick.
Please do.
It's playing at Brandon Colwyn's Microwave Cinema on May 3rd.
Is that in Madison?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm definitely going to that. It's May 3rd.
Okay, that's just a couple of weeks after their festival.
That's right. It's right before
the Wisconsin Film
Maryland,
Festival begins shortly.
Too, by a couple days or something. Yeah. But so I'll be going to that and excited because that's where we shot Sabbatical. And I love Madison. But and then it's going to play at the Edinburgh Art Festival in the UK.
Oh, nice.
This summer.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'm excited about this June.
You going?
So maybe we'll see. It's just a travel and it's money and all, yeah. But I love Edinburgh. Yeah. I have been there before, thankfully, and it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I got to go back there too. It's been many, many years since I've been to Edinburgh.
Yeah, I know. Let's go out there and shoot a movie.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's and steal all the shots.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know what the deal is there, but I'm sure it's great. Can you imagine? It must be easy to shoot films there.
Yeah.
And they got such a history. As a matter of fact, I think it was I don't think Cal. Remember the movie Cal?
Cal is...
Oh, it's a classic. I think might be Ireland.
Who is in that? Who's in that?
I don't remember the guy's and the kid's name, but it's about this kid. But the filmmaker, I was on the phone with him a couple of times, and there's a film, another one of his films. He's made a bunch of films, but the one that was... But Cal came out a little before Local Hero, and it's about a kid. And I think it was Ireland, but it might have been Scotland. But anyway, it's one of my favorites from that period. And so I was on the phone with this guy for something else. And I said, well, if he didn't want to do this other thing, it was like an audio commentary for another one of his movies that he didn't have such fond memories for.
Man.
But he did agree to potentially to do the podcast because he warmed up to me on the phone. He liked me. I guess he was married to, what's her name? Elizabeth something Mastriani. Elizabeth.
Oh, who's in a lot of stuff right now?
Elizabeth? No. Right. She's like middle-aged. Cal came out. Oh, Helen Mirren was in it.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't know that.
Okay.
She was obviously fairly young woman at the time because it came out in '84.
Okay.
And it came out. Cal was directed by Pat O'Connor. Pat, not Steve.
Okay.
But Pat. I was on the phone with Pat. I might be able to get him on.
Well, that'd be
It's
great.
unfortunate it was '84. If it was '85, it would be the 30th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So it just had its 30th anniversary. I love that movie. Is one of the young actors, John Lynch. He's an adult now, and he's still working, apparently, because this headshot on his IMDb page is him as an adult. But he's a beautiful young man. Very beautiful.
Now I got to see it. He's
only a couple years older than me. Oh, yeah, see Cal. It's you'll love it. It's a small movie at a time, where you had to see European films to see small movies.
Right.
Of course, many people make small movies in the States in the last decade or two, but back then, not so much. Hard to. A lot of we turn to European films or the British Isles for those types of. But I loved Cal. Pat O'Connor.
You sold me, Adam. I got to see. Yeah,
Ireland. So it was Ireland. Yeah, go see Cal. Pat O'Connor, and we'll get Pat on the show because I do want to talk to him.
It's great.
I'll email him today. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, it was lovely, really good.
Yeah.
Finally,
thank you, Adam, for
consider this the first of several, or ongoing conversations.
I would love that. I always love just hanging out with you.
Me too.
We should do it in different spaces, just every time. Yeah.
Sure. Well, ultimately, the Filmwax Studios, right?
I know.
Got to make that happen.
Yeah. Hey, I'm ready to help with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy.
You too.